I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. Our guest is Ann Kuszpa. I can't say it right. Ann,
it's
you
like
say it.
chutzpah,
Except
Kuszpa.
That's what I wanted to say. That's why it came out.
And
anyway,
that's okay.
Ann is the Director of Housing Nantucket.
That's right.
And she is here today to talk about and we're going to have her back from time to time to keep us informed about what's going on the housing front.
Sure.
Because Housing Nantucket sponsored a study. And you've talked about that already, I guess, when you were on with Libby Gibson. So what I'd really like to do is just spend a very few minutes sort of getting an update and what's going on now, and what impact is the announcement of the Paston plan for Old South Road had.
Well, let's see. I guess I'll start with what Housing Nantucket's doing. So we are really excited about a project that we're doing at 7 Surfside right now. It's a mini 40B. It's called a LIP, which means a Local Initiative Program. And we've gotten support from the Selectmen and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now we're at the process where we have to go up to the state and get some approval from them. But essentially what it allows us to do is to move 4 dwellings onto a lot that's about a tenth of an acre and put some parking off to the side.
So it's about 4,000 square feet.
It's about that. Yep. Just about 5,000. So it's 0.13 acres, so whatever that is. But anyway, so we do house recycling at Housing Nantucket, which is one of our most successful programs, where a property owner who decides that a dwelling on a lot might not be suitable for the lot, maybe they want to make an improvement on it, and so they'll donate the structure to us, and we'll accept it, we'll move it from their location to our land, and so now we have a place where we can put it. Our problem is we don't have a lot of land, which is why this LIP program has been so appealing to us, because it'll allow us to put 4 structures. They're 1 to 2 bedrooms, tiny cottages across from the school.
Have you identified the buildings?
We have 2 of the buildings. There's an existing cottage that will be moved on the lot, and then a second cottage that will be moved from Matticat Road. The other 2 dwellings are TBD, so I'm looking for those right now. If you know anyone, or anyone who's watching right now might know of a cottage that would be suitable. But
roughly how many, what a footprint of how big?
Say about 575, around there. 500, 600, something like that.
Square feet.
Yep, square feet. So it can be 2 stories, but just around that. The most ideal footprint for me is something that would be less than 22 feet in either direction, because that makes it easier to carry on the road. So we don't need to cut it, and then that will make our costs reduced.
Does that all qualify as affordable housing?
Some of them do. Okay, so the way the state...
I wondered how it fit with the 40B program, which is some sort of statutorily affordable housing, and some is free market housing.
That's right. So with a 40B, 25% or 20 to 25% should be affordable, and that's a very strict guideline, below 50% of the area median income, or below 80% of the median income. For Housing Nantucket, we will have 1 dwelling that is below 80%, and the other 3 units we can charge market rate, but our mission is to provide workforce housing, so those 3 we've committed to offer to less than 100%.
And these are going to be rental units?
Yes, all rental units. Yes. So we went to the ZBA, we needed to do that, the Zoning Board of Appeals, to grant us permission to put an additional dwelling. Some of the neighbors had some concerns, which is fine, and they did the right thing. They came forward, they brought up their concerns, then we worked together to try to figure out how can this work for them too, because they understand that housing's an issue, and if everyone says not in my backyard, then we won't come up with any housing. So we were able to work with them and resolve some issues, which kind of brings me into like the Paston development. So my board hasn't really had any kind of statement that they'd like to put forward, but I'll just give my opinions on it. I think that it's really fantastic, and I think that it's a great thing for them to come in, because it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money to get this development and a lot of affordable housing. Now, their article didn't get approved at town meeting, as we all know, but so what they've done now is ask for a 40B, which will actually make them accountable for the affordable housing units. So at this place, this is a really great opportunity for us as a community to show up and say what we want to see from this development, because they're willing to use their dime to create all this extra housing. I think that it's a really important thing for us to support this.
It's all going to be homeowner owned though, or resident?
No,
It's not.
no,
It's
there's some apartment buildings in there too.
Okay.
So the home ownership units were kind of towards the periphery, towards the other residentials, like on Daffodil and that neighborhood, and then towards the center where the pit is, and the Glowacki pit, and more towards centrally located. That's where they have their apartment buildings planned.
Is there a risk that the Paston project will sort of give the town and so forth a feeling that, well, it's all being taken care of?
You know, as soon as I saw that headline, that's exactly what I thought. But I really think that would be unwise for the town to think that a private developer can solve all of our problems. I mean, we should have some control over the type of housing. They are proposing about 365 units there. Only 20 or 25% of those units will actually be affordable. So at the town site at Four Fairgrounds, all of those units, the way the selectmen are talking about it, all of them would be capped at some level, or at least they would try to do that, and they would just have more control over what's built. So I really don't think we should rely on the Paston Group to.
But do you think there's a danger of it?
I think that some people, if they, an initial reaction might be, yeah, our problem's solved, but it's not. I mean, the state guidelines say we should have about 300 units classified as affordable, and so Paston Group will have about 25% of their 365. So, you know, they'll make a dent in that, but certainly we won't be meeting our goals. And then plus with the additional building, our numbers will have to go up as well. Our affordable housing inventory numbers will need to go up. The state requires 10% of our housing stock to be affordable. So I just think we need to think about it ourselves too.
So what's the best way to keep the pressure on, in your view?
In my view, it's for people watching to bring it up to selectmen, certainly. I think people, if they want to help, they should contact Housing Nantucket, and I can help them to figure out, you know, if they have a house they'd like to donate. Sometimes people call us with furnishings that they'd like to donate. We can take them and sell them and use the proceeds for our mission. We have education courses where we educate the community and the immigrant population about what it means to buy a home here. I think people maybe are disconnected from how it affects them, but when you start to hear the stories of families, you know, a family of 5 sharing one room in a house full of other families of 5 sharing one room, it's not only unsafe, but the emotional stress that it causes on these people affects us all as a community. We're having an opiate problem right now. We're having some suicides. It all weighs on people, and those effects are reverberating through the community. So maybe you don't need housing. I mean, and personally, I don't need housing, but I can see how it does affect us, and it's important that we control it.
What are Housing Nantucket's plans, immediate plans, beyond this project you mentioned on Surfside Road? Do you have anything else in the works?
Well, we have other rentals that we're doing. We have a duplex that we moved from 50 Union Street that just got plopped on its foundation. We relocated it from there. So we'll be turning that around within 6 months.
Where's that?
That's right next to our office at 75 Old South Road. So that's our latest focus. And then I'm also looking at our other lots for 40Bs too, for more lips. So trying to maximize the lots we do have. We are also lobbying for the town to give us some more land at the Tacoma site. So there's right adjacent to Four Fairgrounds is some land on Tacoma that would be perfect for house moving, which I think is just such a cool thing to do.
Housing Nantucket is still convinced that there's it's viable to continue with the idea of home ownership for the workforce here.
Well, you know, we're focusing right now on rentals, but there's not a silver bullet answer to our problem. And there are a lot of people here who would like to own a home, but they can't, either because of the down payment requirements, you know, 10% down on $700,000. It's just not an option for people.
Right.
And then the mortgage payments too on that amount, they just are difficult. So yes, we have our covenant program. We're pushing that. We're trying to advertise for it so that we'll get more people, more sellers willing to give a house into that. And so what that program allows a property owner to do is to subdivide a lot that ordinarily couldn't be subdivided. So they'll put an affordability covenant on one of the dwellings, and then they're able to sell off a portion of the property but retain a property themselves. So we're trying to plug that because there's not any cash outlay from us, and it helps the community to actually benefit on a couple different levels.
So compared to a year ago or 2 years ago, are you more optimistic, less optimistic about the workforce housing situation here on the island?
Well, I think about change a lot. I think about personal change and then relate it to my professional life too. And overcoming denial is a huge part of change, and recognizing that there is a problem. Sometimes I do get discouraged because the problem is so huge, and we're chipping away at housing Nantucket, but 4 units a year, that's great for us. Habitat for Humanity, if they do 1 to 2 units a year, that's great for them. But the need is so much greater. So I think that having people recognize, and more people are actually recognizing that it's a problem, that's different than what it was last year. Last year, I was having trouble getting on selectmen agendas. There just wasn't that acknowledgement that there is a problem, and now I think people are ready to get behind some solutions. We need to figure out what they are, but at least it's not, is there really a housing problem? We can't do anything about it. I think employers are having a harder time hiring people, and so it just affects more people.
Well, thank you, Ann, for the update, and come back again and keep us apprised of the progress, not only at Housing Nantucket, but generally on the workforce housing issue.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the attention that you give it to.